Have you ever noticed the similarities between the words for nine and new in lots of different languages? How is the word nine linked to noon and lunch? And how is the word new related to the word now? Keep watching to find out. If you've studied any European languages, you may have noticed a similarity between the words for nine and new. Here's French and German, Spanish, Danish, and Hindi. I could keep going, but I won't. So what's going on? Well, Romance languages like French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, etc. get their words for nine and new from Latin, from novem and novus respectively. From novus we get English words like innovate, to come up with something new, and novice, someone who is new to something. From novem we get November, which used to be the 9th month, because January and February used to be at the end of the year. It was the whole thing. Anyway, what about Hindi? That's not descended from Latin. The words in Hindi probably came from Sanskrit, where the words for nine and new both began with the syllable nuv. Notice that's not a million miles from novem and novus. How come these languages from the subcontinent and from Europe have this amount of similarity? It's not a coincidence. Many languages from Europe to the subcontinent are descended from a common ancestral language. We don't have direct records of this language, but linguists can reconstruct parts of it, and they call this hypothetical language proto-indo-european. And in proto-indo-european, it is thought that the words for nine and new were very similar to each other, and this explains the similarities in all of the descendant languages. But this just begs the question, why were nine and new so similar in proto-indo-european? Was that just a coincidence? And here we've almost reached a dead end. We have very little hard evidence to go on when it comes to proto-indo-european, but there is one speculative theory that I really like the sound of. And it's based on the fact that in proto-indo-european, the word for eight was something that sounded like octo, which is something we should be familiar with, by the way. Octopus, for example, octagon. Now, the word octo in proto-indo-european also meant two lots of the span of four fingers, or two lots of 4 finger breadths. Now that's interesting. What if proto-indo-europeans counted using their fingers but not their thumbs? So if they counted to 8 and then wanted to get to 9, they would need a new set of fingers. So the theory goes that the word for 9 was named after new, because we'd need a new set of fingers to count up to 9. A very speculative theory, there's not a lot of evidence to support it, but it's a neat theory nonetheless. So we've gone about as far back as we can from nine and new, but what about words that are descended from those? I mentioned at the beginning that we get the word noon from nine. How is that? Well, take a look at this list. It's a list of ecclesiastical prayer times, and focus on these words in particular. What they mean is first, third, sixth, and ninth. But first, third, sixth, and ninth of what exactly? Well, they're referring to daylight hours, so prime would be the first hour after sunrise, and nones or newness here is the 9th hour after sunrise, or the 9th daylight hour. Traditionally, this was 3 p.m, assuming a sunrise time of 6 a.m. And indeed, the word noon originally did not mean midday. It was closer in sense to 3 in the afternoon. It wasn't until the 13th or 14th century that noon began to mean midday rather than 3 in the afternoon. From the same root, we also got the word nuncheon, meaning an afternoon drink or snack. Now this word has fallen out of use, but the Oxford English Dictionary suggests that nuncheon may have influenced the word luncheon, which has been around since the 1600s. And it wasn't until 1829 that lunch, as an abbreviation for luncheon, in the sense of our midday meal, first began to appear. So that's how we get noon and lunch from the number 9. So, now what? The word now, that's what. The word now can trace its root back to the proto-indo-european word for new. That's because things happening now are newly happening. Speaking of new, right at the start of the video, I had a graphic showing that the French word for new was neuf. French actually has another word for new, nouveau, but those words are subtly distinct from each other. Neuf is used for brand new objects, whereas nouveau depends on context. For example, if I was eating something and I dropped my spoon and I asked for a new spoon, I would not be asking for a brand new spoon. So I wouldn't use neuf or neuve in that context. I would use nouveau or nouvelle. Notice how nouvelle is pretty close to our word novel, as in original or new, like that's a novel idea. We also use novel in another sense in English, don't we, to refer to books like Robinson Crusoe. And interestingly, that word novel also comes from the same Latin root, novus for new, but via a different path. We get novel in that sense from the Italian word novella. Now, novella in Italian means a shortish story, but before it meant that, it used to mean information of interest, or news. And you can think of news as the kind of thing that is delivered in short-ish stories. All right, that's enough for now. I hope you learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider clicking like, and if you could subscribe, well, then I'd be on cloud 9.